Hi, everyone. Let's give it a minute for more people to join.
Hello. I think you're on mute, Rachel. I can't hear you.
No, I'm
Right.
here. I said let's give it a minute for a few more people to join.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Okay. Let's just give it one last minute and then we will kick off. We appreciate those who've joined on time. Thank you. Okay, great. I would like to kick us off. And first, great. Welcome all. I'd like to welcome you to our first ever IMER FMCG webinar that's hosted by Maersk in collaboration with Kantar as our research partners. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you across India, Middle East, and Africa. I'll be your host today. My name is Rachel Wariko. I'm a regional marketing manager at Maersk. Thank you for joining this webinar, Designing for Disruption, Building Adaptive Supply Chains. One thing that's constant in this life is change. There's a Greek philosopher who said, the only constant in life is change. As such, that's the reason we are having this webinar, because we need to talk about how FMCG companies can embed resilience and adaptability to thrive amid the constant changes that they're facing. If we reflect on the past years, we've experienced quite a few disruptions, from the pandemic to the Red Sea crisis, port congestion, port closures. If there's anything that we can take out is that change and disruptions are definitely constant and they're becoming more of the norm, which means that traditional efficiency-based supply chains are constantly getting tested. Now, the conversation we're going to have today is quite apt and timely because resilience is no longer just about surviving, it's about finding the competitive differentiators that we can get. Earlier this year, we did some studies with FT Longitude to understand how FMCGs were operating amidst disruptions. Out of that study, we found that the front-running FMCGs, the leaders, had lost less than 1% of their revenue to disruptions, in comparison to the average FMCGs that lost 3 to 4%. In a market where most of the FMCGs are dealing with very lean margins, this is a very difference. And what you find that is that the front runners have actually designed supply chains that bend but do not break when they have disruptions. On the other hand, we're looking at companies that have focused on cost optimization. For companies that focus on cost optimization, they find that the ultra lean models that they're running sometimes can also be ultra fragile when disruptions hit. So today we're going to explore what it means to design supply chains that are built for disruption rather than stability. Some of the topics that we're going to cover today run from: how do brands shift from an efficiency-first mindset to a resilience-first mindset? What are the operational strategies that we can take to make our supply chains adaptive? How can technology play a role in improving our resilience? What's the role of partnerships in building resilience? How can we integrate sustainability without hurting our efficiency? And finally, we'll take a look into the future and try to imagine what adaptive supply chains of tomorrow should look like, and what are the things that we need to do now to get ready. There is a Q&A option available to you. Please feel free to drop your questions in there and we will address them towards the end of the session. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the speakers that we have today. We have a brilliant panel that is comprised of, first, we have GS Shikawat. He's the General Manager of Supply Chain Management at a company called Biotic. Biotic is based in India. It's it's more than 30 years old, and it's a company that deals in natural wellness and beauty products. Shikawat is a veteran FMCG supply chain leader. He oversees end-to-end operations of Biotic. He's going to bring a practitioner's view on blending agility with the rigor of traditional supply chains. He's also going to touch on sustainability and innovation, driving resilience in competitive markets. Our second speaker is Ankur Dayal, who's a director at Primark Pecan Retail Limited. He heads an omni-channel retail enablement venture that manages e-commerce fulfillment across various brands. He's going to offer insights on the digital and last-mile innovation aspects, especially how do we balance efficiency and resilience in high-volume retail operations. Our third speaker is from our partners at Kantar, Biswapriya, who's the Director of B2B and Technology at Kantar. He heads supply chain research initiatives that are focused on the India, Middle East, and African regions, and he's going to contribute data-driven insights from recent studies on supply chain resilience. Finally, he'll also provide a regional context on what strategies are working for FMCGs in the IMEA region. Finally, I'd like to welcome James Savager, who's our Head of Sales Excellence, IMEA at Maersk. He has over 2 decades of experience in shipping and logistics industry. He joined Maersk in 2001 and has had the privilege of working in sales, FMCG sales, where he handled companies such as Unilever, P&G, and Mondelez, to name but a few. He's going to demonstrate the value of the Maersk integrator strategy to our customers. Now we can begin our conversations, and I'll pose the first question to Shikawat. What does it mean to design for disruption in your supply chain, and how is it different from traditional risk management?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Michelle, for beautiful introduction, and feeling an extremely pleasure in having an interaction with the business tycoons of the industry. So it's my privilege to share the true facts and something insight with respect to my organization. We are into the personal care and the beauty products in the name of a biotech, and the company is providing a good solutions across the various segments of the business to the general trade, modern trade, then you can say the e-commerce platforms, hotel divisions, and the professional divisions. So coming to your question, how the agility in a competitive market. So at a biotech, designing for the disruption means building a supply chain that is a faster, flexible, and deeply aligned to our natural product DNA. We start with the resilience, at the sources itself. We are having a multiple origin, or you can say it's a multiple sourcing origin for botanical sourcings. Okay, long-term partnership. We always believe to have a long-term partnership with our stakeholders, with the certified growers, basically. Okay, and a full traceability to ensure the quality and a continuity of our products. That is the only reason my company is surviving in this competitive environment from last n number of the years. Even in the markets or the climates condition shifts. Okay, we complement that with a digital agility. The digital agility had played a very significant role nowadays. And you can see the tools of the artificial intelligence and the chat GPT and all those. Using all those digital agility tools, we are having a demand sensing tools. We are having a demands because these are the seasonal products. They behave differently in the winter season, in the summer season, in rainy seasons. So we utilize the demand sensing tools and the real-time sales and the supplier data to anticipate the trends and respond faster to the consumer needs, because each consumer is having its own needs. So we take care of all the consumer needs, what are their taste and what they expect from us. On the execution side, our modular manufacturing lines, we are having a highly tech enabled manufacturing lines. My manufacturing site is located into the hills of Himalaya, that is basically a Paonta, Himachal Pradesh. And we are having a regional hubs. We are maintaining a hub across almost at the 14 states of the India, so that the reach to the end consumer becomes an easy. And scalable automation allows us to accelerate the launches of the new product as and when required, and manages the seasonal surges and innovate quickly without compromising the product quality. The vision of the company is that the product quality should be there at a top priority with the customer satisfaction. Okay, and finally, it's a cultural cross-functional readiness planning, supplier development, and sustainability embedded in our decision. Today, the concept is not like a client or a vendor. We just work like a stakeholders. My vendors are my stakeholder and I am a stakeholder to my vendors. We both work with hand on hand. If I am feeling a pain, my vendors also feel a pain. If I am happy, my vendors are also happy. So whatever the benefits we earn, we transfer the same proportion to our stakeholders. And simultaneously, the stakeholders are also coming up with the true facts and the technology, and they come up with the cost cuttings and everything. Okay, so they share whatever the new developments are there. They come up and they let us know, okay, Mr. Shikawa, these are the new development, you should adopt it. So we adopt all those new developments. So for us, disruption isn't something to react it. It's something we designed for blending nature-led integrity with a tech-enabled speed to stay ahead in the competitive beauty and the wellness market. We do not consider anybody as our competitor. We ourselves think that we should work as like a benchmarker for the other people's, for the other industry. So that is from my level.
Brilliant. That's a really great response, Shikawat, and thank you for sharing that. I think one of the things I can take out is that resilience at Biotic is not really bucketed into one specific segment. It cuts across. It's from your sourcing, it's execution. You're still putting your customer at the top of mind, and that's something that's very impressive. I will move to the next question that is directed to Ankur. How can FMCG leaders shift from an efficiency-first mindset to a resilience-first mindset without compromising their competitiveness?
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you for the lovely introduction. And good day to everyone here on the panel and also to the attendees. Rachel, given the nature of our business, so I'll just give you a brief. We basically help enable brands on the e-commerce ecosystem, whether it is their marketplaces or whether it is D2C, and we help manage every aspect of it. And operations obviously play a very crucial and important role in this entire, end-to-end facility which we provide for our brands. After having managed a lot of FMCG and consumable brands for the last 12 years, we've kind of come to a conclusion that in e-commerce, disruption isn't an exception. It's like an everyday reality. There is platforms tweak algorithms overnight. There is one influencer-led promotion. It leads to spike in orders, and and suddenly the warehouse goes out of toss in terms of the number of orders which hit them. Uh, there are regional warehouse disruptions. There are weather-related and also geopolitical-related challenges which lead to, deliveries to certain regions and supply-related challenges. And so that always, that's like a constant for us. Earlier, we always used to drive efficiency. We were trying to figure out lowest cost per order. We were trying to figure out how can we make our manpower cost low or have the leanest possible inventory. But we sort of realized that lean often is fragile. One missed forecast or one missed order leads to a lot of angry customers and lead to a lot of disruption in the entire chain. So we sort of changed our approach, being resilient first rather than only efficient. And we began to design our systems in a way that it acted like a spring. That means it was flexible and not just fast, right? Uh, we opened multiple fulfillment model. We figured out where are we actually getting more orders from in terms of zones, in terms of cities, and we started opening fulfillment center closer to that. And we figured out that what, if there are order challenges or there is a spike in order in one of the warehouses, we could automatically reroute those orders to backup warehouses and service it from there, ensuring minimal real-time disruption and ensuring that the customer delight is taken care of. Uh, this not only helped us kind of build that customer trust without any disruptions, and we sort of saw a lot of reduction in our customer complaints and delivery timelines. Uh, we've also invested a lot in analytics in our internal dashboard, where we are able to spot early demands, we are able to spot spikes, we are able to sort of also use a lot of our historical data and analysis and figure out, which are going to be the high peak seasons, and we accordingly keep a lot of buffer stocks. So, having buffer stocks may add to a bit of a cost, but that cost in terms of the customer, in terms of the reduction in disruption, actually paid off. So, so according to me, I think resilience and efficiencies are not just opposites. I think a well-placed buffer or an alternate routing of orders saved a lot of angry customers, which not only led to a lot of increase in revenue for the brand, but also increase in trust. And I think for us, resilience eventually became a competitive edge, and not just trying to build efficiencies.
Amazing. Thanks, Ankur. You've provided a very compelling before and after story demonstrating how resilience can actually improve on the competitiveness, not just diminish it. The strength here is in the evidence that you've shared. Adding on redundancies and flexibility, Primark Pecan was actually able to see tangible results, be it your happier customers and the proverbial spring, as you've mentioned, it did not break under the pressure. Small investments in resilience can actually prevent much larger losses. And I like that you touched on that in the sense that you're protecting your brand reputation. When we also look at it as missed orders can easily translate into empty shelves, you lose share of shelf to somebody else. So resilience does have a strong role to play in safeguarding businesses, but also keeping them, at the helm and ahead of the rest of the competition. There's a gap that I think we could explore beyond this conversation, perhaps even beyond this webinar, and it's in terms of how do we convince key stakeholders. And in this case, I'm thinking leaders like the finance leadership on the needs to invest behind resilience measures. Because I think in your case, you're able to say, you've shown us that you're able to prove the return on investment after some time. But when you're going to invest in this, I think the thing the audience may be curious about is how do we share, what are the sort of metrics that would be shared, or what pilot tests can be used to show that resilience is actually going to pay off as an investment. As a conclusion to this first part, I can say that Shekhawat and Ankur have both underscored that the mindset shift is key. Resilience is definitely something that's very important, and we should see it beyond being just an additional cost element. I'd like us to now move to operational adaptability. We have a big picture understanding of the role of resilience, and we know that we need to build it into our systems. But now, what are the operational levers that make a supply chain truly adaptive to disruptions, especially in a region like IMEA that faces a lot of volatility? My next question is directed to Biswa. What are the key building blocks of an adaptive supply chain? We've looked at things like modular manufacturing, multi-sourcing, digital twins, but which ones would you say are most critical to IMEA? And while you answer that, I will also ask James to add on his views right after.
Right. Thanks, Rachel, and great pleasure to be here. I think first I'd like to kind of touch upon each of these to see what exactly is happening around each of these areas. So if you talk about, say, multi-sourcing, we are now increasingly realizing that you cannot really rely on a single supplier. It's no longer sustainable. We are seeing frequent disruption, global disruption, geopolitical changes, also a lot of seasonality in what we are seeing happening around the world, which is actually getting the brands to start ensuring that they are able to build a solution where their supply chain is widening. They are building a lot more nearshoring and creating backups in a way so that their business is flexible. And that's very, very critical in today's day and age. The second thing that you touched upon is on digital twins and how we are looking at digitalization. And I think Mr. Shekhawat spoke about how he has been using things like AI, for example, very extensively. And I believe that things like real-time visibility, AI forecasting, use of mobile platforms are things that are going to become increasingly more important, right? And things around traceability, in the context of sustainability is going to be enabled only through a digital and AI-led function as such. And a lot of it is today mainstream. And the third thing, which is in terms of modular manufacturing as well, that you touched upon, well, I think that's something that's very, very important. It is important to ensure that we take care of the spikes around festivals, spikes around requirements, or even I think what Ankur mentioned, right? Influencer promotion and the spike around that we see around that. So I think each of these are very important, and it's not really if you're planning an adaptive supply chain, it is important to start looking at each of them. But you've asked me to pick up one. So if you ask me, I think the one that is possibly the most important going forward is going to be the digital twins, digital visibility, building your entire digital ecosystem, right? And that's because of two reasons. One, I think the real shifts are happening there. We would ride the wave in that case rather than pick it up and have a lag effect. But also, I think as an organization, digitalization from an FMCG company, from a perspective of supply chain company, comes in usually much later in the conversation. And this is to bring it back into the center stage. And therefore, I believe that digitalization and the entire paraphernalia around digitalization is so important. Thank you so much.
Over to you, James.
Thank you, Rachel. This is a really good question about adaptive supply chain. It comes up a lot when we talk to customers, both within the India, Middle East and Africa region and globally as well. So, you know, I agree a lot with Biswa's perspective. You know, from a Maersk vantage point, when we talk about adaptive supply chain, it's really about how fast you can respond when things change, because as we have seen in the last 5 years globally, things do change quickly. We're seeing accelerated change overall impacting supply chains. So, you know, brands and companies need to have a supply chain playbook, you know, way of working that needs to include the building blocks that we've mentioned. So modular manufacturing, multi-sourcing, digital twins or a digital agenda in general, they all have a role to play. But their importance depends a lot on where you are and what you're producing. So if I look at India, Middle East, and Africa specifically, I'd say multi-sourcing and then the digital visibility are absolutely critical right now. So if we look at multi-sourcing, companies have learned the hard way that depending on the single source, whether that's a factory or a transport mode or route, is a risk. We've seen disruptions from weather, port congestion, regulatory changes, and geopolitical shifts. Having multiple sources of supply and manufacturing options, even within the region itself, makes a huge difference. It gives you that flexibility to pivot fast when there are these disruptions. And then the digital scenario, the digital agenda, visibility, digital twins, etc., plays a big role here as well. They are helping companies move from reacting to predicting to autonomous decision making even. When you can actually simulate what happens if a port closes or demand spikes in a certain market, that's a real game changer. Enables you to make much smarter, faster decisions with confidence around your supply chain. Then just on modular manufacturing, this is a really interesting trend. We're starting to see FMCG players think about smaller, more flexible production units closer to consumers. That's going to grow over time, especially as infrastructure improves and lead times become more critical. The ability to react to customer demand or preempt customer demand at a local level. So if I had to simplify it in terms of what are key to the supply chain resilience as we see it, so visibility, the foundation on a digital agenda. In Maersk, we have several digital solutions like our Visibility Studio and supply chain platforms that we help customers with. Multi-sourcing is definitely a lever to provide more resilience in an FMCG organization. And then modular manufacturing is kind of the next frontier in terms of designing production that are flexible, scalable, and configured quickly. So when we bring these together, the visibility, the multi-sourcing, the modular manufacturing, bringing them together and connected with a integrated logistics and supply chain, that's when a supply chain can really become adaptive.
Brilliant. Thank you, Biswa. Thank you, James. I think based on the reflections and the feedback that you've given us, we can converge on some key points. And from what I'm picking up, at least the first two that any FMCG that hasn't started off with would be multi-sourcing and digital visibility, especially for this particular region, because it basically will help us diversify supplier base and basically be more reliable in the event of disruptions. And then you also have the ability to see and make decisions on time with the use of tech. Now, Biswa's response painted a picture of what adaptation means on the ground, and James also complemented that by bringing in the technology product perspective. Something I'd like to highlight, though, is that notion of being proactive versus being reactive. The tools and strategies that we are speaking about here are there to help us anticipate and adjust before a disruption becomes a disaster or a crisis, which essentially is the whole essence of being adaptive. Something that hasn't been mentioned by the two speakers is the aspect of collaboration. When it comes to multi-sourcing, you require strong supplier relationships and end-to-end visibility. But we are going to cover this when we get into the topic of partnerships. I did have a follow-up question for James. I know you did touch a bit on the digital twins, but are you seeing companies experiment with digital twins in the region? And how far along are IMEA companies with simulation technology?
Yes, we are starting to see more companies experiment with digital twins. I'd say within this region, we're in the kind of more the earlier stages of it. A few of the big multinationals, particularly FMCG and pharmaceuticals, are quite advanced. They're using digital twins not just to map out their supply chains, but to simulate different scenarios. For example, what happens if demand shifts geographically, or a key route, a shipping route, for example, is disrupted? So it's really about testing decisions before committing to them, and understanding the impact different scenarios would have on your supply chain. But if we move away from the big multinationals and look at first some of the more local or regional players, we see that they're still building the foundations, getting the data right, connecting systems, improving visibility, because a digital twin is only as good as the data that is feeding it. So, it's important to get those basics right before you build the big digital world. What's encouraging, though, is that the mindset has shifted. Companies are realizing that visibility alone isn't enough. You need a predictive capability, and that's really where digital twins come in. From a Maersk point of view, we're helping customers take those first steps, connecting physical flows with data flows, integrating logistics data into our customers' planning systems. Once you have that, you can start layering simulation tools and even AI as well to make the supply chain more intelligent over time. So in short, the pioneers are already doing it, a lot of the big global multinationals, and the rest of, are on the journey, and the potential is huge for the region.
Great. Thank you, James. I think as a conclusion to that section, we could say adaptive supply chains rest on multiple pillars. You're looking at flexible sourcing, actionable data, and agile operations. IMEA businesses are definitely doubling down on getting alternative supply solution options and using technology to see and manage their networks in real time. We have a question that's going to be posted in the chat for you to respond. Please select one answer. Which of the following disruptions has had the biggest impact on your supply chain in the past year? There's a few options there. Kindly select which one affects you most, has affected you the most. As we progress, we've covered what it means to have a resilience-fast mindset and operational adaptability. It's now time to shift to the role of technology and data in building adaptive supply chains. My next question goes back to Biswa again. How can AI and predictive analytics support real-time decision-making in adaptive supply chains? And what are the risks of over-reliance on these technologies?
Right, and I think that's a very pertinent question. We've been talking about AI across a lot of industries today, and while it is a game changer for supply chain and various other industries, it also comes with a few risks. So, firstly, I think let's look at how does it really help. The three key areas that we believe AI is already playing a role, and if not, will play a role over the next 6 months to a year. One is, of course, help you in doing better forecasting. And we've been talking about forecasting for a while. James touched upon forecasting as well. The region is very volatile, right? And there are lots of seasonal spikes. The seasonal spikes are not only driven by the festive demands, whether it's in India during a Diwali or a Ramadan in the Middle East, but it's also driven by a lot of brand-led activities. It's also driven by other factors which could be driving up, for example, governmental regulations, etc., which are driving up seasonal demands, either spiking it out or pulling it down, right? And the ability to forecast those, to be able to be there when the demand spikes, but at the same time ensure that you're not making losses if the demand goes down, is very important, and AI and other tools actually help us do that. The second is in terms of distribution. Route planning is a very critical aspect in the entire supply chain. And how do you actually plan your route better, get sharper planning, build routes which can help you cut down on costs, get you to your destination faster, actually build uh, helps you get to your customers faster, helps you ensure that you are able to realize your revenues faster, and also helps you ensure that you are able to reduce the total cost of operations, which is very important. And that's where the various predictive tools play a role. The third aspect is actually to avert risk. And we touched upon that briefly, I think Rachel spoke about, in terms of how you can actually ensure that you are able to act on time before you have a scenario where a disruption actually becomes a crisis. And that is where companies have been using real-time data to ensure that they are able to identify whether it's a regulatory shift or it's a port congestion or it is weather events that can potentially add to the risk of the entire supply chain. They're able to identify those and avert those risks. So that's how organizations today are using AI and predictive analytics and everything in the digital space at this point in time. However, uh, there are risks to over-reliance because one, the data gaps that exist today is real, and especially more so in the emerging markets. Also, the technology and the algorithms are also uh, learning by themselves, and they can create blind spots as well. So what is important, therefore, is to use technology along with very strong local judgment. So AI actually needs to be augmented through local decision making, on ground decision making. And therefore, AI is not a replacement, it's more of a support that it should play. That's how I would look at the entire scheme of things.
Great, thank you, Biswa. You've provided quite a balanced view of the positives and the negatives that would come alongside the use of technology. On the optimistic side, AI can definitely support in averting disruption or averting a crisis before it actually explodes. But on the other hand, there's definitely a role to play in terms of making sure it doesn't fully replace the human decision making. Some things I could draw out of the points that you've given us is first, act before disruption becomes a crisis. And that's one point of leveraging on technology. But we can also see that AI should augment and not replace human decision making. Now, that last one should be a golden rule for anyone who's looking at implementing these systems. It's definitely going to be a journey to find that right balance between the human and machine elements. I have a follow-up question for James, which is, have you seen cases where over-reliance on technology has caused trouble?
Yes, so we have seen some instances of that. I mean, maybe before I get to some of those specific examples, you know, it is really good to see how generative AI, predictive analytics, decision intelligence are transforming how we make decisions in supply chains. You know, they do come with some traps, though, if we're not careful. On the positive side, leading companies in FMCG have adopted things like agentic AI, addressing a high level of complexity and ever increasing business speed, kind of try and see around the corner of what's coming. That can improve forecasting, can lead to some level of prediction around disruptions, and even suggesting alternative routes or sourcing options in real time, especially in regions like Middle East, Africa, India, where volatility can be high. That kind of intelligence can make a huge difference. But the risk comes when you know, companies start treating the system, the AI, as a black box. We've seen, you know, a few cases where organizations trusted the algorithm more than the experience on the ground. So, for example, one customer followed an automated routing recommendation during a congestion period, but the system didn't pick up that a local port strike was happening. The system didn't pick that up fast enough. So it ended up costing the company a lot more because of the delays and the disruptions that they were incurring at that port, because they just followed the algorithm. So for certain business decisions, AI should augment the human decision making, but not replace it. And you still need local context, experience, and common sense. And that's our view at Maersk. We think of it as a partnership between human intelligence and machine intelligence. The technology gives you speed and insight, but people provide the judgment, the empathy, and then the understanding of nuance, especially in complex markets like in this region.
Thank you, James. There you have it, folks. Thanks, James. Basically, out of this, I think we can take it that we need to use AI as a powerful tool to accelerate and strengthen our decision-making and treat it as part of the team, but not necessarily the whole team. I'd like to now flip the script. We've covered one side of the coin, which was the technology piece and the operational capabilities. But on the other side, there's the aspect of who do we collaborate with? No supply chain is an island, especially during disruptions. So I'd like us to talk about partnering with external stakeholders, how partnering with external stakeholders can boost resilience. My first question will be directed to Shikawat, which is, how can partnerships with startups, government, or logistics service providers accelerate resilience in building supply chains?
Partnership with the stakeholders plays a very significant role nowadays. As I earlier told, today the concept of client and vendor is not existing. It's the concept of a stakeholder. We are working just like a brother and sisters. Okay, in the environment, this environment of a competitive environment where the survival is a difficult as of now. So nowadays, how the partnership or the startups or the governments or the logistics providers can accelerate the resilience. The logistics providers, the partnership, partnering with the strong logistics providers have a significantly improved. And at a biotic level, I am sharing my personal experience. Okay, when I had a partnership with the Maersk, so I personally observed how well we have improved our supply chain efficiency. For instance, the biotic joined the force with a third-party logistics in the name of Maersk. Today, my two of the big warehouses, one in the northern of the India, one in the western of the India, both are being run by the Maersk. And I am one of the satisfied customer where I am getting each and everything as a live report. What exactly the material is lying, where exactly the material is lying, how much quantity, how much value, what is the aging of the material, everything is alive. Okay, so that had improved the entire business scenario. Today we are servicing, as I told at the startup, that we are servicing the end number of the clients. It's basically a modern trade. It's a general trade e-commerce platform where the end consumers are coming onto the platform and they are asking for the material which is having a very high freshness, which is recently produced. So the moment when we stored a material under such an environment, which is where the tracing and tracking is a easy and digitally controlled, then we can come up with the final decision taking what material has to be supplied to the end consumer so that no any complaint is being observed. Okay, so for instance, Biotic has joined a force with a third-party company extended to its distribution network. During a recent regional floods in the South Asia, many roads, you might have observed that the many roads were submerged and the Biotic own small fleet was not capable to cater the end requirement of the consumer. Okay, in that case, it was my partner who took the responsibility and who was having a broader network and could reroute the shipment through unaffected region and even use the alternate transport models, because there are the multiple level of the transport models. I was working with the road segment, but when the roads were being submerged at that time, because it was being affected by the flood, so my partner came up with the alternate options. They floated my material by air, by railway, and by other means also. Okay, but it haven't impacted my end client or my business. As a result, Biotech kept its service running while competitors without such partnership face the stockout situation. And even during that time also, we were holding the first position to have our products at all the e-commerce platform for all the variants and for all the categories. Managing more than 2000 SKUs at the e-commerce platform is not an easy task. But when we have a good partner, okay, what I am emphasizing, like Maersk, so they provide me a solution that I am in a capability or I am in a position that my products are visible across all the platforms as of day. Okay, our 3PL has literally become an extension of our supply chain, bringing the capacity and routes we wouldn't have on our own. We could not have achieved such type of the better flexibility until unless if we haven't been tied up with the good partners. And the good partner is my global partner in the name of a Maersk. I would not hesitate, and I would like to share the true fact to my all listeners who are working into the industries that by having an experience of more than 25 years in the industries, I had seen such type of you can say the efficient and the effective supply chain, and I haven't seen what Maersk is maintaining as of now by the other players. But yes, if the ranking is being given out of that 10, I will give more than 9.5 to the Maersk for providing such a beautiful solutions. Okay, so global partner like Maersk can provide a multiple model solutions and priority handling in a way a single company might struggle to arrange. The trust and established process with the logistics partner mean when a disruption hits, you are not negotiating from the scratch. The partner is already invested in keeping your goods moving. So this is from my side how the logistic partner can help us by having a good partnership.
Thank you so much. I think from that experience, we definitely see that there's a job to be done beyond our original four walls. We need to go out there and actually build partnerships that can help us withstand the disruptions that we face in time. Thank you so much for that example. I will remember this one about the flood and 3PL support. And thank you also for that score for Maersk. I think it's a very brilliant score, and we'll try to keep that up there. I have a follow-up question to James around partnerships. How do you see partnerships playing out in resilience? Do you have any examples of collaborations we've had with customers that smoothed over any form of crisis?
So in our study earlier this year, we saw that leaders in FMCG manage resilience or disruption-related losses to less than 1% of their revenues versus industry average of almost 4%. So people skills and collaboration, the partnerships across the company's ecosystem, definitely core reasons that drive that leader's performance. Partnerships are a key ingredient of a resilient supply chain, which that also includes a strong talent strategy to ensure that organizations can leverage and build also on the technology that we continue to utilize to further enhance our supply chains.
Thank you, James. As part of our conclusion, we basically can see that resilience is something that can't be built in isolation. We have to collaborate with the right partners, regardless of what they provide. It could be the physical capacity, could be digital solutions or regulatory support. But at the end of the day, we have to work in partnership with others and build those relationships way ahead of the disruptions coming up. Now, I want to move on to the topic of sustainability. We have covered different aspects, but sustainability is also a core part of driving resilience. And there's a mandate to make supply chains more than resilient, right? So I'll direct this question to Ankur. How can adaptive supply chains integrate sustainability goals, such as carbon costing or circular logistics, without adding costs or complexity?
Right, Rachel. So speaking purely from an e-commerce perspective and from our perspective, I think sustainability can simplify operations and save cost. Rather, in a lot of our cases, in fact, sustainability became a byproduct of smarter efficiency. Obviously, it has to be done smartly. It's definitely not a trade-off, according to us, and I can cite multiple examples to sort of do that. We sort of manage multiple brands with multiple product sizes, and we had this drive to right size packaging purely from a sustainability perspective, where we sort of started looked at how can we right size the package, and this led us to reduce not only a lot of cardboard and plastic films and increase sustainability, but at the same time it achieved a dual win. We not only cut waste, but we also lowered shipping cost. We obviously reduced the volumetric weight of the package, and it reduced a lot of shipping costs for our clients. And it also led to a tertiary benefit where it improved customer experience because customers are not looking at a lot of oversized packaging with a lot of fills, and it kind of created a lot of delight. So what I'm trying to say is that this initiative obviously required a lot of engineering, a lot of planning to ensure that we have a right size packaging. We did a combos, the singles, and everything. But it led to not only sustainability benefit, but also led to a lot of efficiency and customer delights. Another example is that when we were sort of when you manage multiple deliveries for multiple brands, you're handing over to various logistics partners. We realized that the same logistics partner is coming and picking up product for deliveries for different brands at different timelines. And in one of such warehouses, we sort of decided to merge or sort of group multi-brand packages and hand it over to the logistics partner in one go. This was helping us reduce the number of trips which the logistics partner did to the warehouse. Now, reducing number of trips obviously reduced a lot of fuel consumption and obviously carbon emissions. But at the same time, we also figured out that since the products were all going to the same sorting center, consolidating inventory reduced delivery timelines to our end consumer. So sustainable efforts led to reduction in delivery timelines and better customer experience. In Primark Beacon, we've opened a lot of micro fulfillment centers, and obviously with the help of Maersk, we're now operating out of multiple locations. The effort obviously was driven by a sustainability effort in terms of figuring out how can we reduce fuel consumption by getting closer to the customer. It was also sort of coupled with the fact that getting closer to the customer would help us reduce delivery timelines and increase customer experience. And having done that, we realized that we saved cost in terms of delivery duration and their logistics cost. We increased sustainability by reducing obviously fuel consumption, and the customer response was immense. Instead of doing long haul truck deliveries or surface deliveries, we were doing smaller van deliveries. The breakages were less, the damages were less, customers were getting better experiences, and it reduced the timeline. So what I'm trying to say is that sustainability and efficiency and cost are never a trade-off. You can obviously, it always leads to a reduction in cost and also efficiencies in terms of things. It also leads to a better agile and decentralized network in handling disruptions. So I think when sustainability initiatives, when aligned with operational goals, tends to remove waste and efficiency from the system. And by waste, I just don't mean non-value adding elements. I mean a lot of savings.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that response. And I think I won't belabor the point. What I've taken out of it is sustainability, efficiency, and cost are never a trade-off. Basically, going green does not necessarily mean a direct conversion into higher costs or more complexities. Owing to how tight we are on time, I would now like us to now get to the closing remarks, which is basically looking at the future outlook. And my question now to each of the panelists is, what does the future of supply chain design look like in a world of continuous disruption? And how should FMCG brands prepare for it today? In order of response, we'll have it as Biswa, Ankur, GS, and then James.
Okay, so I think there are a lot of things that we've spoken about. I'll keep it short. I know we are running short on time. So I think the future of sustainability is not going to be chasing stability. It's about building for constant change, and therefore resilience has to be strategic. It cannot be that it's only the front runners who actually build resilient supply chain. It has to be all organizations that should focus on building a resilient supply chain, and that has to be the first and most important. The second, as I've been kind of speaking about, technology has to be the backbone. It has to drive real-time analytics. It has to build forecasting scenarios. It has to simulate. It has to drive things to become faster and more efficient. And the third, collaboration has to be most important, whether it's with the logistic partners, tech partners, or even with competitors if required, to build ecosystem level changes and build real resilience in the ecosystem. Uh, Finally, we touched upon sustainability. I believe sustainability and localization are going to be very critical. They are no longer optional. You will have to focus on local sourcing, on building a circular practice, and they would become not only cost regulatory led, but you'd also start seeing a lot of cost benefit as you start investing in that. So that's how I would like to put it. It is not about investing in these as a project, but these is how you would actually build long-term sustainability of your business.
Thank you. Yeah, next.
Rachel, if I have to describe one word for the future of supply chain, I think it would be responsive. I think the next decade is not going to be about pure prediction of disruption. I think it would be around how fast you can respond to it. The winners are going to be ones who can sense, adapt, and recover, and almost in real time. Uh, a smart supply chain system today and in the future is going to be equipped with IoT sensors, going to be equipped with AI-driven dashboards, which will actually sense disruptions and deviations much in advance and is able to sort of respond by being ready for it in real time, ensuring minimal downtime. Uh, Global players, global FMCG giants and also even consumer players have already started using AI-driven tools, which not only build predictive analysis, but also is able to self-correct their supply chain networks in order to respond to it. So I think the future to be responsible would be, another word is self-healing. We are experimenting in our own systems with automated order reallocation strategies, where if there is one warehouse which is hitting a ceiling in terms of sudden spike or the number of orders it can process, the system is automatically able to route those orders to other backup warehouses without any manual intervention. At the same time, I would say this responsiveness or this responsive should not be just about technology. It should be about ecosystem thinking. There is an entire ecosystem and the entire chain, which basically needs to have the same visibility, whether it is the brand sourcing, whether it is the warehousing partner, whether it is the order processing, the last mile logistics, or even the last mile person who's delivering needs to see this entire. This should be able to send this entire visibility in one layer. They should be able to sense disruptions at the same time and should be able to be ready and responsive at the same time. And I think this collaborative enough effort and being responsible is what is going to be the future. So my ultimate summation is that brands that build responsiveness in their DNA and through agility and smart data and of course collaboration will be the ones who are going to be able to retain customer trust and in an era of constant change. disruption is not going to go away for sure. But responsive supply chain will ensure that it never brings you down.
Excellent. Shekhawat, over to you, your closing remarks.
Yes, I would like to embed the views of Mr. Vishwapriya and Mr. Ankur Dayal that the future of a supply chain is a combination of both. That is the technology and sustainability. If I come to the view of a technology, then we all know that artificial intelligence has a transformative role in today's corporate world by serving as a powerful assistant for content creations, customer service, data analysis, and employee training. Simultaneously, if we come to the point of sustainability, then we consider sustainability as a part of a corporate social responsibility because we peoples are responsible for the upcoming generation. We have to ensure that whatever we are doing for the sake of our business should not impact our environment. Our environment should be green. Our natural resource should sustain, should be there for the upcoming generation. So what Mr. Ankur had said, that we focus on the areas of reusable, then reusable packaging, supplier material take backs, and smarter routings. What Mr. Ankur had said is absolutely right. So these two things, artificial intelligence and sustainability, is a part of a future supply chain. The future supply chain in a disrupted world is about designing for the choice, not for certainty. FMCG brands will need a network that can sense, decide, and respond in real time using the data, digital twins, scenario planning to shift the capacity, sourcing, and routes quickly. It is not about building bigger buffers, but smarter optionality. Today, the companies are working on the just in time. It is indeed a philosophy rather than a series of technology. Its ultimate aim is to achieve a perfection in manufacturing through elimination of all the wastes, whatever the waste. Okay, people are working on the ergonomics. If one person is lifting X material from X location to Y destination, then the people are working on the ergonomics also, how to reduce the effects. So it is a combination of both. The future of a supply chain. The winning supply chain blends the resilience, speed, and sustainability. So you can protect availability, manage cost, and reduce carbon all at the same time. So this is a part of a supply chain, future supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, James.
Yeah, I've just closed on, disruption isn't a temporary phase. It's almost a new baseline. My advice to FMCG brands is simple, really. Constantly audit your vulnerabilities, invest in visibility, plug into connected ecosystems, design your supply chain as if disruption is permanent, because in many ways it already is. Thank you.
Thank you, James. So out of this, some of the key phrases that I've had today are responsiveness, having predictiveness, and also the adaptive by design. So as the world continues to change, so will supply chains, as James has said. And to prepare for this, some key things that we could do as the audience is get our data infrastructure and analytics in place, diversify and fortify our supplier and logistics networks, strengthen the partnerships that we have, and build more. And finally, cultivate agility in our teams. Let's train people, empower them, and drive innovative thinking. So as a conclusion, we could say that designing for disruption is an ongoing journey, and companies that are built to be adaptive and resilient will be positioned not only to weather the storms that come through disruption, but they're going to outrun the competition and capture the opportunities that come for them. I would like to thank all the speakers for the insights that they've shared today and knowledge that they've shared with us. I'd also like to thank the audience for engaging with us. I know there were a few questions, and we shall respond post-webinar as part of the key takeouts and recordings that will be shared. Let's stay curious and keep designing supply chains that are able to withstand disruption. Thank you and good day to all. I'd like to request the speakers to remain on the call with me.